All right, so today's daf is Ayin Zion 77. We're 77, sorry, 77a. And we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines from the top on our Rabbah. Okay, so we're continuing to discuss what the Mishnah had said, what is a case of capital murder? Um, and it has to be, you have to be involved, directly, and be the direct cause of the victim's death. Now, so the Gemara continues in that vein. Amar Rava, kafaso umes barav. Well, and this is something was exactly what you asked yesterday, Ken. What if you tie somebody up, or you could say imprison him, and you don't feed him, and he dies of hunger, starvation? Um, so Potter Rava says, then you're not the direct cause. You're the hunger came of itself. Oh, the Gemara will expand on this a little bit, but you're not liable for murder if you imprison someone and deprive them from food over a period of time. Rava, kafaso b'chama v'meis. What if you tie somebody up in the sun, right? Put him out in the hot sun, and he died from heat exposure? Or batzina v'meis, or you tie him up and you put him in a very cold environment and you die from cold exposure. Chayav, then you are liable. Sof chamalava, but if you put him outside at night and then the sun comes up in the morning and it's a fiercely hot day and he dies, then or sof tzina lava, or if it's warm, it's not freezing out now, but you put him outside and then the weather changes and it becomes bitterly cold and he dies. Potter, then you're not liable. Okay. So the principle seems to be that that all the conditions have to be there when you confine the person, right? If it's already hot and you put them outside, then you're directly liable. If you put them outside, then it becomes hot, then another one of the factors come into play, then you're not directly liable. Um, V'yamar Rava, and Rava says, "Kfasul ifnei ariwa." If you tie somebody up, and then before a lion, potter, then you are not liable, because it's the lion that did the damage, right? You didn't directly do the damage. Now, look, we could argue with. I'm surprised you haven't said anything yet, Ken, because
But
you
I'm
could
thinking about what
argue with
about
all
the,
these things.
yeah, of
Yeah, go
course,
ahead.
the time of the gladiators in Rome, and they put someone
Hmm.
in the field against lions and so forth. I mean, the lion. They knew the lion was going to attack this person.
Yeah. Um, so the whole Gemara today is going to be, there's going to be to me, a lot of questions about degree, right? Like, exactly how, to what extent were the conditions present or not present that led to the demise? I mean, all these cases, you started something, right? The murderer, the killer, whatever, the person who's being who the accused, shall we say, is took an action that led to the victim's death. But the question is, how directly responsible is he? And so there's all kinds of shades of variations, and we could question all of them, right? Like you could construct a scenario, different scenarios with a lion, like how much, to what extent is the person, is the person more responsible or less responsible, depending on, was the lion hungry, where was the lion, right? I mean, there's a whole continuum of things. So the Gemara is exploring that, and we're not going to get any cut and dry satisfactory answers. I don't think there's always going to be questions on these cases, exactly how much was it this way or that way. But so the next case in the world is Lifnei Yetushin, Chayev. If you put him, you think of like you put the person out where he's going to be bitten to death by insects, then you are responsible. But Ravashi says no. Afilu Lifnei Yetushin nami pater. No, even in the case of the insects, you're still pater. Hani azli v'anu asu. Like Rava, you're thinking that the insects are already there when the accused traps the victim, so the accused is then definitely directly responsible. But maybe, with insects, they come and go, right? Like, maybe the insects that were there at the time were relieved by other insects, and the ones that actually killed him weren't there at the time. So so Ravashi says it's not clear that you're the direct cause.
It may depend on the environment. If a person put, if
Exactly.
there is mosquitoes, you're in a malaria infested area, or malaria,
Exactly. Yeah.
there's mosquitoes carrying malaria, or Uncle Circa, or whatever,
Hmm.
other
Yeah.
parasitic diseases.
Yeah.
It's just, what do you call it?
You then maybe you have an additional degree of direct liability.
Trypanosomiasis, things like that. Whatever.
Okay. Itmar, here's a case. And another brisa. Kafal of gigis. What if you you put a barrel over somebody's head, and he suffocated? Uparal of maziva, or you somebody's in the house and you break a hole into the roof, and it's cold outside and he dies from exposure. Rava and Rabbi Zera, Chaner Chaim, Chaner Pater. Rava and Rabbi Zera have different opinions. One says Chayiv, one says Pater. Now, remember, Rava just said before that if you trap somebody in the presence of a lion, then you're Pater, but in the presence of insects, you're Chayiv. So now, what about here? Rava has one of these views, that. If you suffocate someone, cause someone to suffocate or cause someone to die of exposure in these ways, and one Rav and Rav Zera, one says Chai, one says Patra. So let's try and figure out who's who. To stand to Rava who Diamar Patra. Maybe Rava is the one that says that you're Patra, that you're not liable. Diamar Rava, because Rava said before, Kafasu Umes Barav, if you the previous thing that Rava said was if you tie somebody up and he dies of starvation, Patra, then you're not liable. So it's kind of the same thing, right? If you're not directly responsible in the case of tying someone up and he's overcome by starvation, then maybe you could say it's the same with the case of putting the barrel over his head. That he suffocates. You're not actively strangling him, right? So you're just causing the conditions under which he dies. So maybe you'd also be potter. Or says no, Adrabba, not necessarily. To send Reb Zera who the Yamar Pater. Maybe it's Reb Zera who says Pater because the Yamar Reb Zera said the following. I'm on the Aile Lechavri Bevesa the Shisha. If you lock somebody up in a marble room, right? A marble house. So it's sealed, right? There's no windows, no doors. Va'adlik shraga, and you light a fire there. Umes, and then he dies, presumably from the fumes, from smoke inhalation or lack of oxygen or whatever. Chayiv, then you're liable. So um, Talmud Adlik Shraga. Now, so let's analyze what Rabbi Zera says. If you just locked him up in the room without the fire, Rabbi Zera is not talking about that. He's talking about Dafka where you lit a fire in the room. So if you didn't light the fire, he would say Pater. How lo Adlik Shraga lo. So Rabbi Zera is implying that if you just lock him in a sealed room, um, and he dies there's no fire, then Rabbi Zera would say Pater, right? And so that is similar to our case of putting a barrel over somebody's head and he suffocates, right? So maybe it's Reb Zera says Pater. I'm right. So the answer, Hasam Labula Struggle Maskil Havla. Now, in the case of the sealed room, he wouldn't die, right? You put somebody in a sealed room, then whatever, he's stuck in the sealed room, right? But he's not going to, there's no like without the fire, without lighting the fire, there wouldn't be any danger there. So that's why Rosero specified the case of the fire, because otherwise there's no murder, right? In other words, he doesn't think that anything would have happened. So you can't deduce that if you put somebody in a room and he dies, uh, that's not what we're talking. That's not the kind of room we're talking about. Um, uh, uh-huh. 1 second. So it wouldn't be so direct. Wouldn't he with smoke inhalation, with a fire, he's going to die very quickly. If it's a sealed room, there's plenty of air in there to last for hours. Eventually, he'll run out of oxygen. But that's too indirect. But in the case of the barrel over the guy's head, Nami Maslo Havla Bishate, he's going to suffocate very quickly. It's much more direct than if you put somebody in a room until he runs out of air. That's less direct than if you put a barrel over somebody's head or a plastic bag over somebody's head, and he suffocates almost right away. Okay. Amar Rava, the chafel bar. More cases. Rava says if you push somebody into a pit, the sulam babar, and there was a ladder in the pit, so he could climb out, right? Ubachar v'silcha. But after you push him in the pit, somebody else comes and removes the ladder, and now he's stuck. Vafilu kadam v'silcha, or even if you yourself push him in the pit and you yourself take out the ladder, Potter, you're not liable to be in the shadi because you pushed him in the pit. Okay, you may be entitled to damages or whatever, but he's not going to die there because at the time that you pushed him in, there was an escape. There was a way to climb out. Now, someone took away the way to climb out. We're not talking about him, but that's probably indirect as well. But the guy who pushed him in is not responsible. V'yamarava, similar case, Zarak Heights, if you shoot an arrow with tree spiado and the guy has a shield, right? So he's safe. Ubacha unatalo, but somebody removes the shield before the arrow gets there. Afilu hukan unatalo, or even if somehow the shooter of the arrow was able to yank on a chain attached to the shield and remove the shield, and so then the arrow after it is shot the arrow becomes a murder weapon, Potter, then you are liable, not liable. To be the piske, because at the time you shot the arrow, the guy was safe, right? He had the shield. Somebody took away the shield. That's not your fault,
But
not
how
the
much
fault of the
time
shooter.
elapsed? How much
I'm
time
sorry.
elapsed? He
Yeah, I
shoots
know.
the arrow and then he pulls the shield away. Then
Yeah, I mean,
it's a
you
way
could
to try to
construct a
kill him.
case
So is he,
where if it's a
he
third party, you could understand it, right? I shoot
right?
the arrow while it's midair, somebody yanks the air, but the guy, the shooter himself. So I was thinking maybe if there's like a chain connected to the shield, you shoot the arrow and quickly yank the chain after you shoot the arrow. So it removes the shield before the arrow gets there.
So he's trying to circumvent his own actions, basically, so that he would not be liable for what he's doing. He sort
Yeah,
of
something
rigged
like
he
that.
rigged
Yeah,
this.
he rigs the game, exactly. Yeah. V'yamarava. And I should say, that I mean, we're talking about whether it's a cat, whether you execute the killer, right? It doesn't mean that the killer is off the hook. Like the rabbis, if I'm not mistaken, there's a whole set of the rabbis have a lot of, or the judges, I should say, have a lot of latitude to punish the person, even if he's formally not, they're not able to convict him of capital murder. Okay, he can be jailed or whatever. So, we're not necessarily letting the guy off the hook altogether. We're just discussing the parameters of the death penalty. V'yamarava, Zark bochetz v'simanim biyado. Similar, if somebody shot you, let's say I like to think of this as a poisoned arrow. Okay, so he shoots a poisoned arrow at you. If it hits you, the poison gets in your system and you die. The samanim biyado, but the guy has the drugs, has the medicine, the antidote, right? So then you're not responsible for a murder because he's got the way out. He can save himself. But after you shot the arrow, you know uh, somebody knocks the medicine out of his hand and it's not usable anymore. Who cut him a piece run, or even if you, the shooter, went and took away the medicine, Potter, then you're not liable to be because at the time that you shot him, it wasn't necessarily going to be a fatal wound because he could have taken the medicine. Ravashi, Hilkach Afilu Samani Bashuk. So Ravashi says, well, you can extend that. Even if he could have gone to CVS and gotten the medication, right? Then you're still not liable. Amalei Ravacha Breda Rava Ola Ravashi. So Ravacha asked him the following: Nizdam Nulo Samani. What if you shoot the arrow? There's no medicine around, and then the CVS delivery comes in, and it's presto, there's medicine. Mahu. So what do we say? Is the guy liable or not? Like you would think that following the train of thought so far, that since at the time that you shot the guy, there was no medicine, you're
He's
liable.
fired.
Amarle, hare yatsa mi based in zakai. um, um, I think what he's saying here, yeah, let's look at Rashi. Um, hare yatsa mi based in zakai, it's about a quarter of the way down. Klomar, poil v'kodem amdu badin masul azchus elon l'chayva. Since since it transpired, even though when he shot the arrow, he would have been liable, but then before he was brought to court, the medicine appears, right? So then um, uh, then the guy presumably doesn't die. So there's nothing to no, he could have not died. So the Beis Din will use this as a pretext to let the guy off the hook, if you will. I don't know if pretext is the right word, but basically, I think what Rav Ashi is saying is we'll look for any opportunity to not convict this guy. And if it's that, sure, he should have been liable, but turned out the medicine showed up, so we won't make him liable. Okay, it's not really consistent with, to me, it's not really consistent with the whole line of reasoning that we've been following until now. But I think the idea is harkens back to something we've seen earlier in the Masechta, that the court should try to find any way to let the guy off the hook and not have to execute him.
When it says Rashi is matzulo zechut, does that mean zechut is referring to the medication?
Yeah, I think it means that the court can find a reason for leniency, or a reason to not convict. It's not entirely clear what it means.
And then however, kodem amdu badin before
Hmm.
before before the court made the decision, matzulo zechut eno lechayvo.
It's not before they made the decision, before we even got to court.
Okay, right. Okay,
Yeah,
before, but that includes the decision. But
right, right.
when it says matzulo zechut, is that referring to the acu- the
Yeah,
key?
I had the drug or the verdict. It sounds like the verdict. Like it sounds like the
Ain't no, but
reasoning to let him
it seems
off.
extra then. If you're saying that it refers
Yeah,
matzulo
it does. Yeah, I
zechut,
agree with you.
then
I
I'm
agree with
thinking,
you.
it could mean matzulo zechut referring to the person who received the arrow, and there now he found the zechut to heal himself.
Hmm.
Or if it's just saying Eno Lachaiva, if it says, I'm a little confused right with Rashi.
Yeah, I know. I am too, to be honest. I don't really follow the logic here anyway, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Whichever way you read it, it
I
doesn't
know
seem to be consistent.
that it seems like that phrase Matzlo Zechut is extra. You could just say, if we're referring to the accused party, the one who shot the arrow or whatever we shot, but
Hmm.
let Rashi say Ein lo lechayvo.
Yeah.
But so then I'm thinking Matsulo Zechut means this person had the person who was shot had now had the opportunity Zechut to find the medicine to heal him. That's what I'm just.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't have an answer for you. I think your question is a good one. I don't really have an answer. Beyond Rava, moving on. Zarak Turarba Kosel. If you threw a rock, a pebble against the wall, and it bounced off the wall, Vaharga, and it hit somebody and killed him. Chayev, then you're liable. The Tana Tuna, and we have a Mishnah like this, or a Brisa like this, could go in Elu Hamasachlim B'Kadur Shahargu. It's like some kind of a ball game. It's a little hard to understand what the ball is and how dangerous it is, but basically you're doing bank shots. Um, so if you're playing ball and you kill somebody in the course of the game, b'mezid, if it's intentional nerugging, then you're subject to the death penalty. B'shogeg goling, and if it was accidental, then you get galus, exile.
There are
So, but
stories
yeah,
every now and then about a hockey puck that flies out of the ring, hits
sure.
someone, and sometimes
Hmm.
person's mortally injured by this hockey puck.
Yeah. Well, that's clearly accidental,
That's
right? I mean, it's
shogeg.
not, yeah,
Absolutely.
right. But you also have cases where there are fights in hockey games. I think there was one death in like the 50s in the National Hockey League. I'm trying to remember if it was a fight or like no, I think it was somebody who got hit with a stick or something, but it was intentional. It was a slash or whatever it was exactly. Now, was he trying to kill the guy? I would say probably not. It's in the course of the game. So how would you judge that? Is that Mazid or Shogeg? I don't know the answer.
There are cases where people are damaged by the skate of another person. A person is
Right? Yeah. Yeah,
the face is
but
sliced or
that's almost certainly accidental, right? I can't think of a case right? I don't think that's intentional. It's it's a aggressive, rough game. You didn't mean to kill somebody by doing that. Um, but if you hit somebody over the head with a stick, you know, is that considered intentional? I would venture to say yes. I mean, maybe you could say it's like in the heat of the game and the passion or whatever that you weren't really trying to kill the person. You're just trying to succeed at the game. But it's unclear if that would be considered to me, if that would be considered shogeg or mazid.
When I was
So
growing
Gemara
up,
says, well,
when I was growing up years ago, in large part, the hockey players did not wear helmets. That
oh
developed
yeah,
later on, and
absolutely,
it became almost obligatory. And virtually, there were a
yeah.
few of these
The goalies
stalwarts who
didn't even
never,
wear masks, right?
no, the mask neither. But there were a few of these stalwarts who never wore helmets, even when
Right,
they became
popular, yeah,
accept popular. There were a
yeah,
few of these people.
yeah. The goalies too, right? There were some goalies that finished out their careers with even after the in the era of the mask without wearing a mask. But I don't think that's allowed anymore. Okay, so going on, B'shogeg goalies, the Gemara says what? Why does the Brisa tell you that if they did it by accidentally, then they get goals? Shifa, that's obvious, right? So Gemara says, yeah, indeed, it is obvious. B'mezid neragin istrichle. The reason the Brisa is written in the first place is to tell you that if it's done on purpose, even in the course of the game, then it's a capital crime. Because Mao, the same hasra safek, who you might say that there has to be hasra, right? There has to be in every capital case, there has to be warning, right? The witnesses have to warn the guy. So because miyemer dahadra, because if you're warning the guy, like, don't throw the ball against the wall because it might bounce and hit the guy and kill him. Miyemer dahadra, but how do you know that's going to happen, right? Maybe it won't bounce and hit him. So it's a maybe that you can't have hasra with a maybe. So Kamash Malan, so it tells us that no, the we understand that if the guy is a skilled player, I guess, and he throws the ball against the wall, it's going to bounce off the wall. Like, no kidding. Like, there's no suffix. So that's why the Brisa is written to tell us about the Maisie case. But by the way, it says, of course, if it's shogeg, then you go to Dolus. But it's not. That's not teaching you anything new. Indeed, the Gemara says that's not teaching you anything new. Tani Rav Tachlifa Bar Marava Kami de Rabbi Yovo, Rav Tachlifa from the west, taught this brisa. Kagon elam sachim v'chadur shahargu, like a case where you're playing ball and you kill someone. Tochar ba'amos pater. If the victim was standing close to the wall, within 4 amos of the wall, then you're not liable. That would be unintentional. We'll see why in a second. Chutz l'arba amos chayav, but if he's further than 4 amos from the wall, then the thrower um, is uh, is liable. And we'll see that the idea is that in this game, the idea is you want the ball to bounce far away, and it would be detrimental. It would be against your intention if it hit somebody before it got far away from the wall. We don't know the rules of this game, but we're kind of discovering. Amrle Ravina Ravashi, so Ravina asks, Hechadami, what's going on in this game? Ida Kanichale, if the thrower wants the ball to only go as far as the guy who's standing there wants to hit the guy, afilu portaname. So what's the 4 amos, right? Like, it could be even less than 4 amos. You should be liable, because that's what the guy wanted to do. Idalon dichale, and if he doesn't want the ball to go that far, afilu todanami lo. Then again, what's the 4 amos? Amalei stamasachim kadur kamadali tfei menach nichale. The standard rule of the game is. The closer they get to the wall before they throw the ball, the better off they are, because in other words, he's observing the game and he says, yeah, the people that throw the wall against the ball, they first try to get as close as possible to the wall, must be because they want the ball to bounce far away. So you can deduce from that they want the ball to go at least 4 amos. So if somebody gets hit within 4 amos, then that's clearly accidental, because that can't have been the intention of the thrower. Okay, this is a weird game. I can't understand what the rules are.
You could say that if I was going to interpret almost the opposite. That if a person they're playing this game in proximity to one another, and and if a person is standing within 4 armors, he would expect the ball to go within 4 armors because you want to be able to access the ball, and therefore the person who throws it wouldn't be liable because the other person knows that it could be there, and he takes his own responsibility. Whereas,
Yeah, but
so then
that must.
he wouldn't be liable. He'd punt it because he's playing the game with him. And if it goes beyond and hits someone else beyond that, then the person who's throwing it is he shouldn't he should have that person shouldn't have been hit. He's out of the range. So that person who throws it so hard that he kills someone else 10 armors away, then the thrower should be liable
Yeah,
because
that must be a different
he's
game.
a quote unquote an innocent
Right?
bystander, and he shouldn't have been killed by the ball. He shouldn't have been hit by the ball. So therefore, the person who throws it is a person driving down the road, starts shooting a gun out of the car, kills an innocent bystander. It certainly should be chayav, right?
Listen, that must be a different game. It's hard. It's hard to know exactly what. Yeah, what's going on here, but I think the principles are clear that you have to determine what is the intention of the guy who committed the crime, the murder, right? Was he was he intentionally trying to kill the victim or not, right? So that's the principle. Now, how this plays out in the context um, of these various games, of the games without knowing what the rules are, is a little hard to parse out. But I think the principle is clear.
Well, how do you explain the previous case where we had at Hatra, right? Then
Mhm.
are we saying that there always that warning
Yeah, you
is
always need
never
warning.
certain.
Yeah. So um, no, we're saying that.
We said that there's no
Yeah,
certainty.
no, I don't think that's what we said. I think what it said was that you have to have certainty, and um, indeed, in the case of the ball game, it's a certain warning. In other words, if you warn the guy, like, if you're going to play this aggressively, you're going to kill somebody, and um, then that's a valid warning. That's not considered a doubt a suffix warning.
So there's no
You
suffix.
could argue with that, but I could say it's not necessarily the case you're always going to kill somebody in this game if you play aggressively. Um, but that's what the position the Gemara took. That this is enough
That
of a certainty that it counts as a warning.
but isn't the Gemara saying that Kamash Malan ain't there is no uncertainty?
No, no, it's saying Mahu detema hasra suffix, who maybe this is a hasra suffix, because mi'emer the hadre, because maybe you could play the game aggressively and not kill somebody, so it's not for sure that somebody's going to die. Kamash Malan, no, it's telling us that no, this ball game is definitely is close enough to a certainty that if you play this in this manner, you're going to kill somebody. It's a pretty violent game. I mean, I'm thinking of the gladiators, right? Like maybe, maybe it's pretty clear that if you're going to participate in a gladiator game, you're going to die.
So then there's no th- th- are we removing the concept of shogeg then?
No,
Uh,
no, just that in this case, if you get warned, in the case of this game, whatever it is, if you get warned that your play is going to result in someone's death, then that's a valid warning. And if you go ahead and do it anyway, then you are liable.
but why are we saying that playing this game is enough of a warning? If you know the rules of the game, that's enough
Yeah.
of a warning. We don't
Oh,
even
no,
need
but you could play, no, you could play the game in an aggressive way or a less aggressive way, I guess. Like, or if you take this shot, somebody's winding up to throw the ball against the wall, and somebody says, wait, if you take that shot, you're gonna kill the other player, then that's a valid warning. You could poke holes in this for sure.
I mean,
I
so
mean,
but then there's no shogeg.
Oh yeah, no, the shogeg would be when there's no warning, for example, right? And you're playing the game and you didn't realize that it was so dangerous, or that the shot you were going to take was so dangerous. Um, so then that's shogeg. That's a classic shogeg. No?
Yes, but if we're saying that the warning is that it's almost inherent in this game, that there would be when we say Kamash Malan, we're learning that a
Okay,
warning.
so maybe I stated that maybe stated that poorly. I think the case the Gemara is actually talking about, and let me restate that. I was being a little too loose. Case the Gemara is actually talking about seems to be, if you take this shot that you're about to take, then you'll kill him. That's a valid warning.
Okay, that I
And
understand.
shogeg would be nobody warned you. You're playing the game. You didn't realize that the shot was so dangerous, and you took it anyway. Okay.
That I understand. I was
Yeah,
just
well, I think that, we don't really understand the game. So, but you understand the distinction between that, between playing the game or being warned about a particular shot that you're about to take?
yes, that I understand, but
Okay.
I'm not so clear that that's what the Gemara is saying here. But what you said, I understand that completely.
Uh-huh. Okay. I mean, that's how I interpret the Gemara, but the reason is because of the questions you asked. Yeah. So I think we're in agreement here. So now we're going back to principles. Lememra does this idea that you'd be liable to kahai gavna kochahu, that this question of the ball bouncing off the wall and hitting someone, is that still a direct cause of the thrower of the ball, right? That kocha, his direct action. Raminu, but there's a counter example. Hamakadesh, if you if you are preparing the paraduma potion, right? V'nafal kiddush al yado al hatzad. So part of it is you add ashes of the paraduma to fresh water, right? V'nafal kiddush al yado al hatzad, and the ashes fell onto your hand or the side of the bowl. Um, V'achakach nafal hashokas, and then it falls into the bowl of water, right? So in other words, you're not adding the ashes directly to the bowl. They bounce off your hand or they bounce off the side of the bowl and then they go into the water. Also, that doesn't work because it has to be, the person has to add the ashes to the water. Um, so doesn't that imply that if that something bouncing off something is not the direct action of a person? So in the case of the paraduma water, it's not the direct action of the person causing the ashes to go in. You should say the same thing about the murder. Um, um, if you throw the ball off the wall, then it's not your direct action. Whereas with Hachamayaskinon Bishoses, we're talking about where the ashes are dripping into the water. They're kind of, it's not like they're bouncing with force off the side of the bowl, right? So they're just kind of sliding in, but that's not koach. That's not kocha. But when you wind up and throw a ball hard against the wall and it bounces off the wall, that's still considered a direct action of your throwing.
How is he supposed to put the ashes in this bowl with his hand or with a tool or what's the
Uh, I,
accepted procedure?
I don't remember.
I mean, if he puts it with his hand, then he's touching it. Then they sort of fall on his hand. If he grabs the ashes and puts them in the bowl, right?
No, but you're depositing them directly in the bowl. That's the right procedure. You take them with your hand or with the spoon. I don't know if it's the hand or the spoon, but you put it directly in the bowl. But what if it bounces off something and goes into the bowl? That's the question. But the Gemara's conclusion is that's not the same as throwing a ball hard against the wall so that it bounces off, right? That even on the bounce, um, that's considered kocha. That's considered your action. Um, Tashma, let's investigate this further. If you have a needle that's tame and it's on a shard, a vihiza allow, and you sprinkle the water on it to purify it. Safek al machat hiza. Safek al hizo mitzala, and you're not sure if you sprinkled the water directly on the target, on the needle, or if it bounced off the surface of the shard. Um, so hazasa puzzle. So if you're not sure, then that's possible. That doesn't work. So doesn't that indicate that bouncing doesn't work? Rav Mishmei de Rav Matzah Itmar. Um, so you have to read it as matzah, not mitzah. So if it found the needle rather than it bounced onto the needle. So you could interpret it either way. So it's not dispositive. This case is not dispositive. Um,
Case is what?
it's not dispositive. It doesn't. You can't tell from this case, from the wording of that brisa, if if the water bounced off or if it like slid off onto the needle. So is it koach or not? Koach or not? It's not clear. I'm Rav Papa. I'm on the kafse lechabre. If you trap somebody, um, the ashkil ale bidcha demaya, and a wave like you're at the beach and you tie somebody up, and a wave comes and sweeps them away and kills them. Gire didehu. It's like your arrow. Like the water is like if you shoot an arrow. So umechayev. That is you're liable. And honey mile b'koach rishon. That's only if like the primary wave is what killed the guy. Avol koach sheni grama b'yamahu. But if the wave swept him away and he's still alive, and then another wave crashes down onto him and that submerges him and kills him, then that is not your direct responsibility. Okay, so we'll stop here for today. I think that was a little more interesting than yesterday's to me. And more to come tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody.
Okay.